Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. If you like the video today, please come in and share it. We surely appreciate it here on 100 Yards of Football. I'd like to give special thanks to my producer today that's making it happen, the very talented Mr. Logan Landers. If you like the video, please come in and share it. I'm your host, Vincent Turner. Today's video is the 2024 NFL Draft prospect, A.D. Mitchell, out of the University of Texas. Helping me break down is our special guest. He's coming live out of Key West, Florida. I consider him the best that's covering the NFL draft this year. The gentleman worked under Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick as one of the top young scouts in the National Football League with the New York Jets. I got two words when I think about him. He's the Phil Collins of the 2024 NFL draft. Coming to us live out of Key West, Florida. We know him as DK, Mr. Daniel Kelly. How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing real well today, Mr. Turner. You know, you reference that Phil Collins, reference, and I have this hat on today for a reason. Congratulations to Dan Quinn for the Dallas Cowboys becoming the new head coach of the Washington Commanders. And so I can feel it coming in the air today for sure. That's it. That moves the meter for Washington. They grab him out of Dallas and bring him over. They know all the plays now. They know all the personnel. We all know you're a Cowboys fan. Absolutely.
Yes, you're throwing shots now.
Shots fired.
The most hated rival in the division. Now they got the defensive coordinator did an outstanding job with the Cowboys. You got little shots, but that's all right, Phil Collins.
It's okay.
The 2024 NFL draft. Tell us about A.D. Mitchell.
Be glad to. There he is, number 5 on your screen, 6'4", 196. He's got that size. And, when I talk about players, I don't just sing with the choir, just come up with one-liners. Everything we do at firstroundmock.com, which is our draft website that I write for, is predicated on game film. Game film is where it's at, grinding game film. And so when I talk about A.D. Mitchell, I'm talking about, I looked at 2021 all targets. Link is on my website. 2022 all targets. 2023 against Kansas State, Alabama, Kansas, Oklahoma, Rice, Baylor, Wyoming, and BYU is a game film footage that I watched and studied intensely that come up with this evaluation. Let's cut to the chase. We're, of course, talking about Dan Quinn and the Dallas Cowboys today. This guy right here that you see on your screen, A.D. Mitchell, is C.D. Lamb all over again. That's right. That's who this guy is. He's a dynamic difference maker, and he fits that profile. Started his career, of course, at Georgia, but transferred down to Texas from reportedly to be closer. He has an alien, a grandmother who's not doing too well. Also, he wanted to be closer to his younger daughter, from my understanding. This guy was a 5-star high school recruit, and if I'm sitting in a scouting room, and they call me, they say, Daniel, tell us about A.D. Mitchell. Just a word. Just come up with a word. Give us a word. I would say explosive. That's the word. Explosive. Okay. He is a dominant alpha number 1 wide receiver with a dominant alpha personality that comes across on game film. Day 1 starter in the National Football League. What else does he look like on game film? Quick off the line of scrimmage. Little quick move, boop, gone. He's a guy that effortlessly gains leverage. And when I talk about route leverage, I mean gaining positional advantage against the cornerback so he can catch the ball and give the quarterback different throwing windows, as they're called in the NFL, the throw to. He's good at achieving that route leverage. He darts into secondaries in the intermediate to deep route levels. He does his best work at that route level. This guy stretches the football field, and that's what you want if you're trying to build an explosive offense in the NFL. Or as they say in the league, he can take the top off a defense. He's a guy, because he has such good deep skills, secondaries and corners have to honor the deep game, which allows him to drive cornerbacks off. They got to respect him. Hey, back up, dude, back up. You got to come off, and then what he can do is he can turn back on a curl route or a quick comeback or something, and he can, line himself up and he can box out the corner, make that nice catch downfield. He's somebody who's, can get open. He creates some really nice big throwing windows for quarterbacks to work into. When you look at his catch rate, 2021, 51%, 2022, 64%, 2023 at 60%. Let's unpack. Let's get out our draft suitcase, right? Let's get our draft suitcase and let's unpack the positives and the negatives, right? Because every prospect has positives and negatives, so no matter who they are. Okay, so the positives, you can see on the screen there, long arms, really important for a wide receiver. Catch radius. We talk about the ability to reach up and catch, and long arms. He's a guy that's really athletic, which I like. And here's something, right? An aggressive demeanor. That's really important. Okay, this guy, you want guys on offense that have a defensive mentality, guys that have a presence to them, guys that intimidate the opponent, guys that they come off the bus and there's a presence. This guy has an aggressive demeanor to him, which is why he draws a fair number of pass interference calls, because he has that aggressive demeanor to him in his game. Dangerous speed. Warning. Dangerous speed, gets going quickly, kind of bendy, kind of like, as you can see, I'm trying to reenact this on the screen here, but really bendy when it comes to, in his routes and route break points. This guy can really just kind of break in and out of a route. And he's somebody that's fluid, somebody who's nimble. And the nice thing too is he's got sudden and explosive body movements, good concentration in traffic. Single, double cover, doesn't really matter. He looks the ball into his hands, looks it into his hands, and focuses. This is very important. Some receivers kind of turn and try to run or look somewhere else before they secure the catch. He secures the catch. Good concentration in traffic, and he excels really at slants, double moves, and the thing too that's nice about him, and this is a quality that a lot of top receivers have in the National Football League, is he has what we call in scouting a kind of a short area burst coming in and going out of his route break points. So he can, which creates a nice little throwing window for quarterbacks, but he can dart into a break point and he can dart off it and come out of it, which is very impressive. And he's also willing to block. This is something that a lot of receivers are unwilling to do in the NFL. Game film is littered with guys who are not willing to block. A.D. Mitchell is willing to block as well, which really tells us that he's a team guy. He's a guy that is going to check himself at the door and be about what's best for the team. And it shows up in that, specifically, that shows up with receivers in the category of run blocking. Negatives, as I touched on, all these receivers and prospects have them. He did miss 9 games in 2022 with a high ankle sprain, but he made it back, which I think is important to talk about and touch on for a brief moment on this show, is that he made it back for the postseason stretch. So he's not a guy who just kind of sat out and said, I'll just take it easy. I'll see you guys next year. He actually came back for his team, which is another great characteristic that he wanted to be back with his teammates. He also has some, there's tendencies. In scouting, I don't look for the one-off. I'm looking for patterns and really tendencies over a sustained period of time, okay? And on all the game film, he had this at Georgia too. This was a tendency, if you remember him there. And he had the same tendency at Texas. At times, he can overrun routes, and he can have some trouble getting to the right spot, the location where he needs to be, where the quarterback is throwing him the ball. It does not happen that often. It is something that's subtle that shows up in the game film, but it is a tendency, and it is something that the NFL receivers coach that he gets, the team he goes to, the team's going to need an experienced receivers coach that kind of polish, because he's kind of like he's like a diamond, okay? That's what A.D. Mitchell is. He's a diamond. And he's a blue chip prospect in this draft. And so what he needs, a diamond needs, is some polish. And that's why he's going to need an experienced receivers coach they can kind of help and guide him towards working towards the right spots and the depth spots and route spots and leverages that he is going to need. And also the other thing, above average, not great on contested catches as well. Average catch radius. This isn't a guy that's going to be mossing people. You know, the old saying, Randy Moss, right? The guy used to jump out of the gym and catch passes from Dante Culpepper with the Vikings. This guy has average catch radius and a very slight tendency. I don't know if I would even call it a tendency. That might be too strong of a wording on my part, but there was a couple fumbles from him as well. But currently, I'll let the cat out of the bag, I guess you could say. He is my WR1 in the 2024 NFL Draft. He's an explosive difference maker. He's a game changer. And that's the type of guy that moves the meter in the 2024 NFL Draft. Your thoughts on A.D. Mitchell, Mr. Turner?
Well, I know a little bit about A.D. Mitchell because he played at the University of Georgia. And when we broadcasting today in my home city of Douglasville, Georgia, is about an hour drive from Athens. A.D. Mitchell, when I think about him, I think about Barry White, smooth. 6'4", 196. Then I think about on Broadway, George Benson, Neon Lights. A.D. Mitchell's a true freshman, had a touchdown against Michigan in the college football playoff semifinals. Then he came back, he had a touchdown against Alabama. As you mentioned, his second season at Georgia, he sat out, 9 games with a high ankle sprain, but he came back and had a touchdown in that big football game against Ohio State. And I don't know if they beat Ohio State without him being on the outside. Then he had a touchdown against TCU. Then he transferred to Texas. And what does he do in the college football semifinals? He has another touchdown. The gentleman, George Benson, on Broadway, Neon Lights. Every time it's a big-time game, he's a big-time player. And the smoothness he has, like I say, the size, 6'4", 196, Barry White smooth. Think about all the great receivers that came through Texas. The fast Lamb Jones, Olympic champion. Roy Williams that played in the league for a while. The explosive Eric Metcalf. Boy, was he a football player. And then Lavin Swede. That was Vince Young's best friend on that national championship season in 2005 with Texas. And then when you look at the comparisons, you know, I'm from the state of Tennessee. I'm from Memphis. I'm a big-time Tennessee fan. He puts me in the mind of Carl Pickens that went on to the Cincinnati Bengals. Carl Pickens was an athlete about 6'3". Then what do I have to say? Alvin Harper, since you want to bring up the Dallas Cowboys, 3 Super Bowls in a row. Mr. Harper got back-to-back. Then you're looking at, he's got the explosiveness of another Texan, Hartley Lee Dykes that went to Oklahoma State. Then he's got a little bit of J.J. Stokes. J.J. Stokes was a big receiver that played at UCLA, California, yay. Then he reminds me of a gentleman when I was at Arkansas, Bobby Duckworth, who's a real tall, lean guy that was smooth, about 6'5", 6'6", that went on to play with the San Diego Chargers. When Bobby Duckworth, A.D. Mitchell has that same characteristic. Bobby Duckworth was a big guy, man, about 6'6", lean, but you could never tell how fast he was going. But all you know, he was always behind the defensive backs. Then he got a little bit of that Tony Hill, another Dallas Cowboy that went to Stanford. Then he's got a little bit of James Lofton. Do I have to say any more? Green Bay Packers, don't he put you in the mind of a James Lofton? Then really Hayes and Moses that played with the Denver Broncos, that played at San Diego State. And then look what the gentleman did when he really got a chance to be a first-year starter. 55 receptions, 845 yards, almost 15 yards a catch, 11 touchdowns. So when I think about A.D. Mitchell, that Barry White smooth, that being on Broadway, but that length and that tall ability to create, I love him. And I think when you talk about wide receiver 1 in the 2024 NFL draft, you know, I would put him in that category, but I like Rome Odunze in Washington. I like Marvin Harrison Jr. I would put him right there with them. But he's an excellent football player. And all I got to say, the horns up, the eyes of Texas. Back to you, DK.
Absolutely. And that's those names you mentioned are first rounders. I have my board as well at firstroundmock.com. You mentioned a lot of good comps. You mentioned a lot of good things. And I tell you what, the Dallas Cowboys, if anyone's listening in the state of Texas, or, we're always, 6 degrees of separation, right? From, we're what, 6 degrees, 6 people away from anyone in the world, as my NFL mentor used to tell me. This is a guy that the Cowboys, I mean, you talk about somebody that would really move the meter and keep him in the state of Texas. You put him opposite of CeeDee Lamb, and that's what you're looking for, because closing thought is that, in the first round of the draft, you're looking for a dynamic difference maker. My NFL mentor, who used to be the scouting director with the Dallas Cowboys for years in their college scouting department, always told me, Danny, he was one of the only people that ever called me Danny, besides my mom. He said, Danny, stick with the dynamic ones. A man with 4 Super Bowl rings, a man who was a scout, most trusted scout under Bill Belichick for the first few Super Bowls up in New England. Danny, stick with the dynamic ones, okay? And A.D. Mitchell is dynamic. He's a game changer. He's a difference maker. That's what you're looking for in the first round. And so really, in today's game, it's all about, offense, the offensive firepower, and so what that boils down to is that it boils down to the quarterback play. It boils down to wide receivers. It boils down to corners, right? We got to cover the receivers, and it boils down to pass rushers. Those are the premium positions outside of left tackle. You can make that argument too, but those are the premium positions in the first round. If a team is looking to move the meter, okay, this is a guy that would be perfect also with like the Los Angeles Rams. This guy would be perfect with the Jacksonville Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence and that big arm, okay? Trevor Lawrence is not a nickel and dime quarterback, okay? Trevor Lawrence has got that huge arm, and to me, you put 4 wide receivers out there that can go get the ball deep. You play Al Davis ball. That you don't sit there with this dink and dunk thing, and some passes are complete, some aren't, and we punt half the time or more. You go get yourself an A.D. Mitchell, a guy who can stretch the football field, allow Lawrence to launch it deep. This guy, like I mentioned, is a true difference maker. He's a game changer. And very, very few guys do I ever say that I love. Most of these guys are just Jags, as Bill Parcells, who hired me back with the New York Jets, used to call him Jag, stands for just another guy. Most of these guys don't excite you when you watch them on film, or me, I should say. But A.D. Mitchell, I mean, I concluded my scouting report, my article on firstroundmock.com, by saying, I love this guy, and I really do. This is a game changer. If you haven't seen him, and I know the Marvin Harrison Jr. craze, if you haven't seen A.D. Mitchell, you owe it to yourself as a draft fan to watch him on game film, because he is special, and he has an arrow going up next to his grade.
If you liked the video today, please come in and share it. We surely appreciate it here on 100 Yards Football. Special thanks to our producer, the very talented Mr. Logan Landers. And thank you, I call him the Phil Collins of the 2024 NFL Draft, Mr. Daniel Kelly, coming live to us out of Key West, Florida. And my final words about A.D. Mitchell. Keyshawn Johnson with more speed and ability. Y'all be blessed here on 100 Yards of Football.